Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Adam, and okay, today we're going to take a bit of a longer look at NAT and where the current market, in my opinion, is going to head for NAT and what I'm doing with my position, right? Because right now I'm down around like 25% on NAT, and it's just been a struggle for me to watch NAT as it goes up and down, up and down. And I mean, this is definitely a volatile stock, and or the goal of the days when it reached like close to $9 a share on in April. And then since then, it has definitely sort of been on a decreasing trend. And we're going to go through some articles. So right now it's sitting at $3.85. Um, After hours, it's up 1%. But pretty much the market for oil tankers is very volatile, right? It looks like, like one day it's up, the next day it's down, and it just like keeps going on. So, same thing with NAT's balance sheet. Right now it looks fantastic, and then the next second it doesn't look too great. And then this definitely reflects the volatile share price. And I mean, even in the month, it's down like around 15%, as we can see here. Um, so first, let's start with the basics. So, okay, NAT, right now, if I'll just go on to highlighter mode. So we see that the tanker market is at its like lowest ever in the year right here. We can see if we look at the index, um, we can see that it's sitting around, like $8,000 right here. And in comparison to 2018, it seems like a reasonable price along this like blue line here. It seems like it's around the same day, but it's also again the spot rates are lower than the 2019 levels, right? And the spot rates, there's one thing that we have to consider when we consider spot rates is that this is not the actual amount of money that NAT is taking in terms of the amount of money that people or companies have to pay to store their oil or to transport their oil on their ships. But again, if we look at the crude carriers, and of course NAT has 23 Suezmax vessels, each of which can carry 1 million barrels of oil per day. If we look at the year to date, obviously it's amazing. It's like 40,000 per day per ship for the spot rate. Last week it was 8,500, and this week it was 8,800. And the new report is going to come out tomorrow, but I don't expect it to be any better than around 8,800 or so per day per ship. Just because if you look at the Potent Partners daily briefing for today, we can see that let me just choose my color here. We can see here that as of this daily briefing was done 9:30 a.m. for Thursday, September 17th, as we can see on the right here. And the spot rate for the Suezmax vessel as of Thursday or today is 6,000, right? So it's sort of, been stagnant. And I mean, so right now, when we go back to the weekly freight rates, I mean, it doesn't look as good as it looked around April and May, where there was a huge increase in the spot rates, and that also corresponded to the increase in the price of NAT, right around the April area, if we can see here, right? That's when NAT stock in April hit pretty much an all-time high, right? So we can sense that the stock price largely corresponds to the freight rates, and specifically the spot rates. And so I mean, if the trend does continue as it previously did for the spot rates of the tanker market, so in 2018 and 2019, we should see some good things coming, and hopefully an appreciation of the stock price if the 2020 levels will ever reach above or around $10,000. Okay, so let's move on. Of course, I've already pointed this out, but there's been recent buying of shares by Alexander and Hansberg and Hansen, which is the CEO, and Alexander is the son. So, for example, on September 4th, the son bought 50,000 shares at 349. So of course he made quite a bit of profit because right now the stock is around $3.90. And so again, this is generally a good sign, but maybe they are trying to keep the stock price propped up. But I think that they know so much about the oil tanker market in general that I do not know, that they feel comfortable investing in it and know that the stock price will not go down. Okay, so one thing I did want to discuss a little bit more in depth is the Q2 report. And one, it disconcerts me that, or it's disconcerting that they don't give any guidance to their time chartered equivalent. So pretty much the amount of money that they have their ships booked at for the next quarter. They don't really give any guidance on that for the third quarter of 2020, right? Um, but anyways, as you can see here, of course, I like this pictorial diagram. Their net income increased from 39.5 million to 49.1 million this quarter, and their dividend also increased from 14 cents to 20 cents as of the second quarter. And of course, this is old news, but I just want to give you a general outline of, like what makes me say what I'm about to say of what I'm doing with my NAT stock, right? So pretty much their net income for second quarter of 2020 came in at 49.1 million, a 24% improvement from the previous quarter of 39.5 million. Okay, so of course the dividend for Q2 2020 is 20 cents as compared to 14 cents in the first quarter. And the main reason why I'm still relatively optimistic about NAT is because they say that 2020 will be a good year for NAT as well as 2021. Okay, so the average TCE for our 23 Suezmax tankers for second quarter 2020 was 48,400 per day per ship. Note that it costs them $8,000 per day per ship just to for uptake of the vessel. And then the previous quarter, the TCE was $44,100 per day per ship. Okay, so I mean, when they say statements like this that 2020 will be a good year for NAT as well as 2021, this gives me a little bit of optimism to hold NAT, which is what I'm going to be doing for at least the next year or two, especially since the dividend is just insane right now. Right, the dividend right now is 14%, which is ridiculous. So and I do think they'll be able to keep this dividend for quite some time. Okay, and so another nice thing is that NAT has reduced their debt position. So NAT holds 144 million in cash as of the date of this release, equaling 96 cents per share. Okay, so our long-term liabilities as per June 30, 2020 stood at 318 million, a reduction of more than 110 million since the year end 2018. Our net debt is 256 million, or about 11 million per ship. So I like how they're increasing their cash position as well as decreasing their long-term liabilities. And again, something, some more news. So we already know that it's 49.1 million net income, or 33 cents per share. This is a further improvement for the first quarter of 2020 that saw net income of 27 cents per share, compared with the second quarter last year loss of 11 cents per share. Okay, so they talk about their net debt is 256 million, or about 11 million per ship. So I saw that for a used ship, for a used oil tanker, they go at around like $40 million per used ship. Now I know NAT's fleet is pretty old, but I still think they would definitely be able to get more than this amount right here, 11 million per ship, if they were to sell some of their tankers, right? Especially since they always brag about their great vetting record with their ships. Okay, so again, that's not really concerning to me right now, and it's nice that they're decreasing their net, or they decrease their net debt coming into the second quarter. Okay, this here I don't like as much because it dilutes shareholder value. But pretty much during the quarter, the company issued 2,459,083 shares with gross proceeds of 15.3 million under its 40 million at the market offering. And so, of course, now the company has 149,689,000 shares outstanding. Okay. So again, I don't like this at all because that means that each of my shares is now worth less, because now in order to price to go up, there needs to be more buying pressure. And this here creates more supply of shares, which pretty much means that if there's not as much demand, but there's more supply of shares, this also pushes the price of the stock down. So that's not something that I like, but maybe they're just trying to take advantage of their very nice stock price at the time, which was like $4.50. So it could make sense. But again, I don't like this, but it is what it is. At least they're decreasing their long-term liabilities. Okay. Another very positive thing that keeps me holding my NAT stock is that the ordering activity for new ships is muted, and the order book in percent of the existing tanker fleet has not been lower in decades. This is one of the main reasons for the good tanker market we have seen this year and for our long-term optimism. Okay, so the world's fleet counts 522 vessels. That's just for Suezmax vessels at the end of June 2020. So during the second quarter of 2020, three vessels were delivered from the shipyards. For the remainder of 2020, we expect to see a total of 13 additions to the world's Suezmax fleet. And so they currently see 22 conventional Suezmax tankers scheduled for delivery in 2021 and only 12 in 2022. So of course, because the oil tanker market operates under supply and demand, when there's more demand when there's less supply of Suezmax vessels, pretty much what that means is that the oil tankers are able to, or the companies are able to charge more for their tankers because there's a decrease in supply of those tankers, right? So pretty much the oil companies have to fight over the tankers that they want to pick and for the best rates, right? But there's an excess of supply, then pretty much that drives the spot price of the tankers down, okay? And so right here, because the supply of tanker tonnage is inelastic in the short term, so that pretty much just means that you can't easily make a ship. It takes about like 6 months to make a ship. So even though there's increased demand for these ships, it takes some time for them to come out to the market. So pretty much this means that when there are too many ships in the area, rates tend to go down. When there is scarcity of ships, which they think is going to be happening based on this paragraph here, spot rates may go up. And of course, short-term spot tanker rates may be expected to be volatile. Of course, as we can see here, for this huge increase in the spot rates and then huge decrease, right? So it makes sense. And so when we look at their balance sheet, it's nice to see that their net voyage revenue went from 30,000 all the way to 93,000 as we compare last year's quarter with this quarter, almost like 3 times revenue growth. And also 6 months ended June 30 to June 30, 2019 versus 2020, an increase of more than 2 times in voyage revenue, right? So this comes to, if we go all the way down balance sheet, a net income of 49.1 million, as compared to a loss of in the previous quarter for the past 2 quarters of 6 months ended June 30, 2019 of 9 million. Okay, so that's something what I really like to see. And of course, we see this increase in shares of like 2 million shares from 147 million to 149 million. Okay, and we look at their total current assets. It's nice that we see their assets going from 100 million to 182 million, increase of 82 million. Part of that was from the issuance of shares. And then, of course, the vessel's depreciating value means that their vessels are not worth as much. So as we can see, it went from like 923 million to 872 million from June 30, 2019 last year to this year, right? Which is common. It's like a depreciation of their vessels, right? So their total assets are 1 billion. And as of this writing, their total current liabilities were this 100 million plus this 318 million based on long-term debt, which is nice because it's a big decrease from last year, 2019 of second quarter, right? So again, I just wanted to go through this balance sheet and say, okay, like, this isn't obviously the most phenomenal balance sheet, but I do like how they're decreasing their long-term debt. It seems like they'll be able to pay out a nice dividend for the time being. And I am quite optimistic. And I definitely will be holding my shares, especially since the dividend on this company is really, really nice. And I'm very hesitant to add more shares. Again, like right now, I wouldn't even say I'd add shares like where it's at right now. I'd maybe wait until the price is around like $3.50, and then I might strike maybe before the dividend date. We'll definitely have to see. But yeah, these are just my thoughts. I'm going to be holding on to my NAT shares. Let me know what you guys are doing with yours. I appreciate you guys watching this, and if you came this far, make sure to give this video a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day.